I've been looking at Rishi Sunak's speech again, and when you look at it again, there is some substance, there is some structure, but it's very difficult to identify. And when we first heard it earlier this afternoon, it was completely drowned out by the noise of things can only get better or things can only get wetter. And the image of a prime minister being saturated, soaked, is etched in our consciousness. That's all we see. All we see is a rat getting drowned. But have a look at this, because there are some points which I would like to make, and I cut in and add these points as and when they strike me. There's not a lot of substance here, by the way.
In the last 5 years, our country has fought through the most challenging times since the Second World War. As I stand here as your Prime Minister, I can't help but reflect that my first proper introduction to you was just over 4 years ago. I stood behind one of the podiums, upstairs in the building behind me. I told you that we faced a generation-defining moment, and that we as a society would not be judged by some government action, but by the small acts of kindness that we showed one another. You met that challenge, and then some, and I have never been prouder to be British. And when I introduced the furlough scheme, I did so not because I saw a country simply in need of desperate help, albeit we were, but because I saw a country whose future hung in the balance. I could be bold and trust in the tens of millions of you at home that you would rise to the moment, or I could accept the inevitable, millions of job losses, and pick up the pieces. In truth, it was no choice at all. I have never and will never leave the people of this country to face the darkest of days alone, and you know that because you've seen it. As I did then, I will forever do everything in my power to provide you with the strongest possible protection I can. That is my promise to you. Because for so many of us, it's easy to forget the scale of what we've been through. We were hit by a pandemic that upended normal life. Who would have thought that the government would ever tell us how many times a day we could leave our homes? Then, just as we were recovering from COVID, war returned to Europe, with Putin's invasion of Ukraine sending your energy bills spiraling. I came to office, above all, to restore economic stability. Economic stability is the bedrock of any future success, whether that is rising wages and good jobs, investment in our public services, or the defence of the country.
The decision to go to the people now is a clear indication that Rishi is forced, that things will only get worse if he stays in the job. He only has to stay in the job a little bit longer to be able to outrank Eden as one of the shortest prime ministers in history. He could beat Eden. It's only a matter of a few days. So something has forced his hand. He's looking at the interest rates, thinking that's good enough. He's not seen a flight go off to Rwanda. Maybe he now knows that will never happen.
And because of our collective sacrifice and your hard work, we have reached 2 major milestones in delivering that stability, showing that when we work together, anything is possible. Our economy is now growing faster than anyone predicted, outpacing Germany, France, and the United States. And this morning it was confirmed that inflation is back to normal. This means that the pressure on prices will ease and mortgage rates will come down. This is proof that the plan and priorities I set out are working.
The claim that inflation has fallen is true, but it's now only back to where it was before Truss came in. So, out of the 5 pledges, has Rishi Sunak really done anything? Has he delivered anything other than putting the clock back to the month before Truss waved her hands around like some maniacal marionette? And, you know, by the demonstration today in the wet of Rishi Sunak's performance, Rishi Sunak was supposed to be a communicator. Has Rishi Sunak been taking the same sort of lessons that were given to Liz Truss? You know, of course, Liz Truss took lessons in trying to communicate. And she was performing these hand jobs to try and get her hands to move in some sort of natural way. But her hand jobs were ineffective. And Rishi Sunak seems to be going in the same direction. Rishi Sunak came in with a certain amount of promise, and he's going out to ridicule. In fact, Rishi Sunak's departure looks almost more ridiculous than Liz Truss's, or than the lachrymosity of Theresa May, or the embarrassment of being found out as a liar in the case of Boris Johnson.
I recognise that it has not always been easy. Some of you will only just be starting to feel the benefits, and for some, it might still be hard when you look at your bank balance. But this hard-earned economic stability was only ever meant to be the beginning. The question now is how, and who do you trust to turn that foundation into a secure future for you, your family, and our country? Now is the moment for Britain to choose its future, to decide whether we want to build on the progress we have made or risk going back to square one with no plan and no certainty. Earlier today, I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament. The King has granted this request, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July. This election will take place at a time when the world is more dangerous than it has been since the end of the Cold War. Putin's Russia is waging a brutal war in Ukraine and will not stop there if he succeeds. That war has also made it all too clear the risk to our energy security. In the Middle East, the forces of Islamist extremism threaten regional and ultimately global stability. These tensions are exploited by extremists who seek to undermine our values and divide our society here at home. China is looking to dominate the 21st century by stealing a lead in technology. And migration is being weaponized by hostile states to threaten the integrity of our borders. These uncertain times call for a clear plan and bold action to chart a course to a secure future. You must choose in this election who has that plan, who is prepared to take the bold action necessary to secure a better future for our country and our children.
I don't know whether we're going to see a Clement Attlee-like defeat of the Conservatives at the next general election, like the end of the Second World War and the defeat of Winston Churchill, but it would require such a considerable change in votes. It would be something astronomical. It would be bigger, indeed, than the shift that took place for Clement Attlee's victory in 1945. However, Rishi Sunak has given the Labour Party an expert leg up with this pathetic performance in front of the podium. Probably, if that was a PR stunt, his PR team need to be sacked immediately before they get the Conservative Party and British politics and our reputation an even worse name, nationally and internationally. This is a travesty of a performance by a senior politician. This should never have happened. This is an embarrassment. This is worse, I would argue, than seeing Liz Truss doing her hand jobs in front of the television. It's worse. This is just an embarrassment. A man covered in what? Well, speculation flies, but it looks as if somebody's dumped an entire chamber pot on top of him. And maybe metaphorically that is exactly what has happened. I wait for the cartoons tomorrow.
Now, I cannot and will not claim that we have got everything right. No government should. But I am proud of what we have achieved together, the bold actions we have taken, and I'm confident about what we can do in the future. We've tackled inflation, controlled debt, cut workers' taxes, and increased the state pension by £900. We've reduced taxes on investment and seized the opportunities of Brexit to make this the best country in the world to grow a business. Put record amounts of funding into our NHS and ensured it is now training the doctors and nurses it needs in the decades to come. We've reformed education, and our children are now the best readers in the Western world. We prioritised energy security and your family finances over environmental dogma in our approach to net zero. We fully funded an increase in defence spending to 2.5% of GDP. We made a decision to invest more in local transport that you actually use, rather than endlessly plough more money into HS2. We set out a comprehensive plan to reform our welfare system, to make it fair for those who pay for it as well as those who need it. Immigration is finally coming down, and we are stopping the boats with our Rwanda partnership. And we will ensure that the next generation grows up smoke-free. I hope that my work since I became Prime Minister shows that we have a plan and are prepared to take bold action necessary for our country to flourish. Now, I've stuck with that plan and always been honest with you about what is needed, even when that's been difficult. Because I'm guided by doing what is right for our country, not what is easy. Now, I can't say the same thing for the Labour Party, because I don't know what they offer. And in truth, I don't think you know either. And that's because they have no plan. There is no bold action. And as a result, the future can only be uncertain with them. On the 5th of July, either Keir Starmer or I will be Prime Minister. He has shown time and time again that he will take the easy way out and do anything to get power. If he was happy to abandon all the promises he made to become Labour leader once he got the job, how can you know that he won't do exactly the same thing if he were to become Prime Minister? If you don't have the conviction to stick to anything you say, if you don't have the courage to tell people what you want to do, and if you don't have a plan, how can you possibly be trusted to lead our country, especially at this most uncertain of times? Over the next few weeks, I will fight for every vote. I will earn your trust, and I will prove to you that only a Conservative government led by me will not put our hard-earned economic stability at risk, can restore pride and confidence in our country, and with a clear plan and bold action, will deliver a secure future for you, your family,
Now,
and our
Rishi
United Kingdom.
ends up by talking about Keir Starmer and how Rishi, stuck to his plan. We still don't know what that plan is, but we know that he's stuck to it because that's the slogan, stick to the plan. And Keir Starmer, in contrast, changes his mind. Well, first of all, Keir Starmer isn't the only one. Rishi Sunak also changes his mind. When he was Chancellor, he was scathing about the Rwanda plan. Now, when he became Prime Minister, it became one of his 5 pledges to keep the Tufty people from Tufton Road, presumably, on board, and to keep himself in number 10. But the more interesting angle is why? Why not change your mind? His claim that Keir Starmer changes his mind, that he doesn't, of course that's untrue. But secondly, why would this be a failure to change minds? Only the fool never changes his mind or her mind. If you think of the dictum put forward by John Maynard Keynes, or allegedly put forward by apparently put forward by John Maynard Keynes, when the facts change, I change my mind. We live in a world dominated by change. Situations change, and we must change our mind to deal with those situations. If you go back to Thatcher and you compare, which I've done, you compare her manifesto pledges with what actually happened, she changed her mind. The illusion that she was inflexible was something pumped out by Russia and then by the BBC. It simply wasn't true. Similarly with Tony Blair. Similarly with Harold Wilson. These are people who listened and changed their minds. And, you may not like some of these people, but they were better prime ministers than a prime minister that was locked into an idée fixe and was terrified of change. Change is good. Listening to other ideas is good. And this idea, this concept, that we should go in with one idea and maintain it doggedly to the end, this is nonsensical.